Admittedly, my interest in the new Street Fighter film as it stands kind of falls in the range of morbid curiosity, and a lot of it, I'm afraid, has to do with its cast. I think it's fair to say that it was inevitable that we'd be seeing yet another reboot of one of video game company Capcom's biggest franchises, which is kind of confusing when you consider that we're actually going to be getting a new Resident Evil film next year, courtesy of Weapons and Barbarian director Zach Kreger. But we're actually going to be talking about the fighting game juggernaut that is Street Fighter in this particular video. You already know the drill. A group of fighters have been brought together to participate in a worldwide tournament organized by the ruthless M. Bison, who is looking to find the best fighters in the world that he can brainwash and integrate into his criminal organization known as Shadaloo. I can't be the only one who's been pronouncing it Shadaloo all this time, can I? And also feeling that it's probably an infinitely cooler name. No? Fine. I think one of the big talking points when this reboot was announced was, of course, that it would be helmed by Australian twin brothers Danny and Michael Philippou, hot off the success of their horror indie debut Talk to Me. I think there were a lot of fans who were kind of excited at this prospect of the pair directing this reboot, just based off of the fact that they had gained a lot of popularity on YouTube over the years and doing a lot of videos that were Street Fighter themed. Unfortunately, they had to drop out because of a scheduling conflict with their follow-up to Talk to Me, Bring Her Back. This paved the way for new director Katao Sakurai to come in and helm the project, and we eventually started to get our initial casting reports with the likes of Jason Momoa as Blanca, Roman Reigns as Akuma, and Andrew Koji as Ryu. And while there were initial rumors that Walton Goggins might be actually playing the role of M. Bison, the role ultimately would go to David Dastmalchian, who most people will know from the horror film Late Night with the Devil, as well as the most recent season of Dexter Resurrection. Right off the bat, a lot of fans were wondering what the rationale might be with regards to some of these casting choices, although it's fair to say that the most conventional was obviously going to be Koji as Ryu. At this point, nothing surprises me about the career choices of Jason Momoa, although I can't help but think that he does films like this knowing that it'll build him enough cred to get passion projects like Chief of War made. So if you've got to slap on some green skin and a spiky orange wig to do it, more power to him. Granted, given the fact that this new film, which apparently is going to take place in the early 90s, is going to revolve primarily around Ryu, Ken, and Chun-Li, I think those actors that they have for those roles are pretty well cast. Obviously, I've been a big fan of Andrew Koji since Warrior, as well as his role as Storm Shadow in the G.I. Joe Origin Snake Eyes, even though that movie is absolute boo-boo. And then you also have him doing a surprisingly comedic turn that doesn't require a lot of fighting in Boy Kills World, which I thought was just an absolute bonkers performance that I definitely loved. I'm also happy to see Noah Centineo get a little bit of a redemption arc after he missed out on playing He-Man in the Masters of the Universe reboot, because he looks absolutely ripped and good with the blonde hair as Ken, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings to that character. I also like Helena Liang as Chun-Li, especially after seeing her in the film Bad Genius, and I'm gonna give her extra points for being a fellow Canuck. And then on top of that, we got ourselves a good red-blooded American to play Guile in the form of AEW wrestler Cody Rhodes. And when I tell you this, it's no surprise that you have a good chunk of those performers that are able to transition to acting. So to see him in this role, especially given how much he is portrayed as that sort of real patriotic idea of America that honestly hasn't existed since the mid-'80s, if we're being perfectly honest. I feel like this is a perfect role for him to take on, and I'm looking forward to seeing him with the hairdo and everything, because that is something that you absolutely need for Guile, like no question. Even casting someone like David Dastmalchian as M. Bison could be pretty inspired, especially if you know some of the inspiration behind that character from the Japanese novels and anime and live-action movies for Doomed Megalopolis, where the character of Yasunori Kato is portrayed often very thin, very gaunt, but still has this very menacing supernatural presence about him that is just something that you know David Dastmalchian can bring to a character, especially if you look back at his early non-verbal role in The Dark Knight, where he's just kind of grinning maniacally and giggling, and that enough, even for that little bit that he's in that film, was very unsettling. So imagine taking that kind of energy and bringing it to a character like M. Bison, and I'd say you have a recipe for success. But you still have some rather odd choices as far as this cast is concerned, especially where some people are not sure what to think of Roman Reigns as Akuma, but then you also have someone like 50 Cent playing Balrog, of all characters. And I feel like this is a situation where if I was going to cast a black actor in their 50s to play this sort of character, one, I'd want them to have a little more fight experience as far as whether it's a martial arts background, whether it's boxing, and obviously this is something where I think, shoot, maybe you could have gone with someone like Michael Jai White, which I agree is an obvious choice, but probably the best one. And then you kind of look at 50 Cent, who just turned 50, and you see that recent years he's kind of slimmed down a little bit, and when he shaves his beard, because there is already a picture out with him and his beard is gone, and I just thought to myself, oh baby, no. I don't want to be ageist, but I'm looking at this photo of 50 Cent with the rest of the cast, and I can't help but think of Stinkmeaner from the Boondocks. And maybe I'm being too harsh, but that just seems like something that, I don't know, someone could have done a little bit better in terms of casting that particular character. Then we also got to talk about South African, Canadian country singer Orville Peck playing the role of Vega. Now, we also have to take into consideration that the last actor to play Vega in a major motion picture based on Street Fighter was also someone from the pop music world, and I guess I'm going to give Orville Peck a little more credit than having Taboo play the character back in Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li. My big fear, I think, with this casting is the fact that Orville Peck, known for wearing these very extravagant, dare I say, cunty masks to cover his face when he performs, and I feel like they're going to go that route more so than have him wear the mask we know from the character from the games, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Although I will forgive it if they recreate this moment from the mid-90s anime movie.
My beautiful face is ruined! You bitch, I'll make you suffer!
Now we've also got Eric Andre in there as this ring announcer character, Don Sauvage, which I guess is fine. I can kind of take it or leave it, but for the love of puppies, why in crispy panko breaded blue perfect hell did they cast Andrew Schultz in this movie? Even beyond the potential controversy of this Japanese character being played by a white actor, I'm just wondering how this particular individual manages to be on the radar for the folks in charge of casting. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I feel like even if you're committed to this character being played by a white actor and a white comedic actor at that, I can't help but feel like there were better choices to go with than the co-host of the Brilliant Idiots podcast. Could he surprise me in the role? I suppose, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not like I'm that beholden to that particular character as far as Street Fighter is concerned. So if he ends up being okay, I'm probably not going to cry too much about it, but it still kind of annoys me that he's in this film. Again, I think that there are enough of the major characters who have good actors in their roles that most fans will probably end up still coming to this film and showing its support, but there are still some baffling choices to this cast that make me wonder what was going on behind the scenes. Did someone involved in the production lose a bet? Are they being blackmailed? Is someone's family member being held hostage? Who knows? Like I said, I'm mostly just curious about this new Street Fighter reboot, and it should be interesting that it will be coming out next year along with the sequel to the Mortal Kombat reboot, which was just recently pushed back from its initial October release date to May of next year. Obviously, the film just went into production, so it's going to be a while before we start seeing things like set photos or maybe even a little behind-the-scenes footage. And who knows, a really good trailer might get me on board for this film, so anything is possible. As good a time as any to give that Machinima web series, Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, a rewatch. You remember Machinima? It was supposed to be a big deal.